What's up, League fans, and welcome back to the regular Blame Game. I'm Mark Z, and each week after the LCS, I look at the most popular Reddit comments in the post-game discussion threads and decide if the blame there is justified or not. I'm sure you're all as thrilled to be back as I am after that quality weekend from the NALCS. Now, before we get into it, I just want to remind people that I'm not here to crap on Reddit or shut them up. I don't expect people who don't play or think about the game 80+ hours a week to have the same understanding as those pros who do. I'm just here to clear up popular misconceptions, so blame away. Let's ease our way into this week with a draft-related concern in CLG versus Team Liquid. Reddit got the blame rolling with some criticism over the Yasuo pick and at Darshan in general. Now, before we get into it, let's just listen to some of Stixay's thoughts on the pick himself.
Well, it was a thing we had practiced, but we hadn't practiced a ton, so we kind of went in, we were just like, all right, Nautilus loses to Yasuo. But we only knew like the laning phase. We didn't know about after. And that's when we kind of got messed up. So yeah, we just weren't like as prepared as we could have been.
First off, I'm not really sure that Yasuo is actually a good counter pick into Nautilus. Even at the height of his power in Season 5 as a top laner, Yasuo was mostly being used as a counter pick to Gnar, and Nautilus has always had a strong early game relative to other tanks. In this game, we see that Darshan is able to blow Lorlo's flash 1v1, but that looks more like a misplay from Lorlo than anything. After 6, Lorlo is able to chunk out Darshan, but that might just be Darshan trying to set up a gank for the LeBlanc. Overall, it looks like a pretty even matchup. Later in the game, despite getting 2 kills in the bot lane TP play, Darshan is never actually able to push in the Nautilus in the mid game. Stixay also said that they had a rough week of practice and were pretty jet lagged, so I'm not sure why they're going for a champion that they don't have much practice on when they can go for comfort on a short week. The final nail in the coffin is that technically TL was still double flexing their top and mid. We've been seeing a rising amount of play in Nautilus mid, and Corki can always go bottom, giving the counterpick to Lorlo against the Yasuo. For all these reasons, Reddit's right with their blame. Getting into the meatiest game of the week, we've got TSM versus Renegades. Reddit was firing shots all over the place, but specifically the primary targets were Yellowstar and Sven. Let's start with the draft, where the combination of Lulu Jhin is one that I personally dislike. Lulu combos best with AD carries who have high DPS and either want to play extra safe like a Kog'Maw or extra aggressive like a Lucian. Jhin plays a little different than both of these, where he wants to stay really far away from the fight to either start or end the engagement. Jhin should almost never need Lulu's help with anything, unless that's assistance and sassily walking in circles at lightning speed. The draft is a minor complaint compared to the atrocious shot calling from TSM that game. Renegades was way ahead in the push and had Rift Herald buff, but TSM failed to recognize the situation and gave up an inhib turret for no reason. It just gave Renegades an unnecessary amount of gold for that part of the game and was eventually the pathway that Renegades took to closing out the game. There was also the fact that TSM grouped up mid at least 3 separate times to take the outer turret, and surprise, surprise, they failed all 3 times. Their comp isn't particularly good at sieging, so I have no idea why they're trying to do this. It's always hard to assign blame for shot calling without knowing the communication, so it's hard to say specifically who to blame, but you know it's somewhere there. When we move to individual play, we absolutely see some suspect moves from both Yellowstar and Sven, like the push where they were postured way too aggressively and got caught out for it. However, everyone on TSM had their fair share of horrible individual plays. Haunters repeatedly got caught out of position, with the first mistake resulting in his death while TSM was taking a free dragon. The next time it happens, he baits Bjergsen into blowing his ult early, and then for some reason Bjergsen dies, and then for some reason Sven takes a bad path and they lose their turret. In the fight that lost them Baron, Sven was randomly positioned too far forward and trying to pick a fight with the rest of his team nowhere nearby. When Bjergsen does arrive, he ults a nearly full health double lift, and they lose the fight. As Renegades secures a fairly uncontestable Baron, Haunters entertains themselves by slapping around a Bard before getting turned on and picked off. This once again baits Yellowstar into the area, who dies again. All these plays are a comedy of errors where just one feeds right into the other. All 4 of Yellowstar's deaths you can actually attribute to trying to protect a teammate who was caught out of position. Basically what I'm saying is, no one on TSM played well. It's true that Sven and Yellowstar both had bad plays, but you gotta remember to share the blame equally and spread it around for everyone on TSM. That's it for this week's episode of The Blame Game. Make sure to tune in next week because it's the final week of the LCS season. I'm sure we'll see plenty of blame for teams failing to make the playoffs when they should have, so tune back then. See that red button down there that says subscribe? Press it. You won't, pussy.